Good morning, and welcome back to Rise and Shine, powered by Thrive IQ Solutions, helping leaders thrive smarter and lead stronger. Our leadership programs help organizations build clarity, stability, and leadership strength at every level. I am Dr. Claire A. Rene, Emotional Intelligence and Leadership Development Strategist, and the curator of a conversation that professionals and leaders have needed for a very long time. Today marks a defining moment. I'm honored to introduce to the world the Vanguard Circle of Ambassadors. This segment lives inside She LeadsEQ as a permanent body of distinguished women, each appointed to a specific authority, each in active service to the women we are here to support. I built this circle with intention around a framework that addresses every dimension of what it truly takes for a woman to lead at her fullness with clarity, capacity, and sustainability. She LeadsEQ stands on 5 pillars: presence, sustain success from within; evolve with intention; reclaim feminine power; intentional influence. And today you will hear these pillars in motion. This is her inner advantage, the Vanguard Circle Edition. So allow me to give each of these distinguished women the floor to introduce herself in her own words from her own authority. Ladies, the table is yours. Katrina?
Hi, everyone. I am Katrina Lee Jones, your Executive Presence Authority. The Executive Presence Authority within this circle, I represent the authority of executive presence and leadership visibility. At this level, I see women navigating increased visibility while refining how they are perceived and received. My work established alignment between presence and positional authority because at this level, presence is interpreted before words are spoken.
Wow, thank you. And Christina Rose, introduce yourself to the collective.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christina Rose. I am a behavioral health counselor and certified health and wellness coach. And in this space, I am your behavioral health and emotional support authority, where we help to elevate and recognize all the complex feelings, thoughts, needs that you may be experiencing, help you unwind them, make sense of them, support you as you pass through all the different eras of your life. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. And last but not least, of course, we have Miss Princess Locke.
Hello, everyone. My name is Princess Locke. I'm an advanced practice nurse practitioner, and I've been practicing a little over 20 years, and I specialize and represent on this team the Women's Vitality Authority. And as my executive presence in supporting Katrina and Christina and Rene is to be here to help when we're talking about women's energy, meaning their ability to be resilient, to feel aligned, and to understand what causes depletion in our longevity, and to be able to be high-performing, sustainable women to meet the demands of today's busy work life. And I'm here to be here for all of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. And once again, as we speak to our collective, our women, our distinguished women of advanced professionals, we want to talk about something very serious here. We're all achieving women, multiple degrees, but it came with a cost. And most of the time, the cost is hidden. So what is the cost of becoming her, the leader, the professional, the woman other relies on? Katrina, what does that look like with her in her presence?
In her presence, one of the hidden costs is most women don't even think or take the time to invest in themselves when it becomes to how they present themselves to the world, how they present themselves in their business, how they present themselves on the executive level, and even women entrepreneurs. They forget about themselves and they begin to look disheveled most of the time, more than not. So for me, that is a hidden cost where she puts herself last in how she presents herself. She shops for everyone in the house besides herself.
Yeah, that sounds true. Now, Presence as a leadership strategy, how would you frame it in that format, Katrina?
Presence as a leadership strategy, I think a C-suiter, well, I know a C-suiter should hire someone. They shouldn't have to be concerned about how they look every day because they make so many decisions. I call it decision fatigue. And your wardrobe, I always say, people, we live in America, people look at you and they judge you before they even speak to you. But if you are well, you look well, you are polished, they are going to have conversation with you before anything else. So I really do think that a woman should just hire a stylist. Don't worry about it. You make decisions all day. Let somebody else make the decisions about your wardrobe.
Wow, that framing alone will shift something for every woman watching. Now, how does that look like for women behaviorally, Christina Rose?
Well, as we're seeing a lot of people in this juncture, what used to work is no longer working in terms of what society has told them to do. So a lot of people went on the track of, we call it the program. The program says to achieve, do this, that, the other, go to a certain school, do well, select one potentially lifelong career, follow that to the end, sometimes the bitter end. And sometimes as women mature, they have awakenings, self-awakenings where this was never my dream. This was never my goal. Why am I doing these things that I have no interest in just to keep up because of the societal pressures? So one of the things we're seeing increasingly is women wanting to opt out. They might want to drastically lower the number of hours they're working. They may want to investigate a totally different field that maybe their family, friends didn't approve of because that wasn't part of the success wheel. Maybe they are more focused on wanting to focus on home and family or hobbies or travel. And so the costs, the hidden cost, but that it will not stay hidden for long, is that major changes potentially can happen, major concessions, rewriting contracts, like personally and with the people closest to you, whether it's work, family, friends.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of inner adjustment when things no longer feel correct for people and how to move forward in a way where it's going to cause disruption, but hopefully not blow up the whole life.
Yeah.
So seeing that more and more, people who are not content and not happy with the status quo and what, society is telling them to do.
With that being said, we have to be consistent with our behavior regulation. Would you agree, Christina Rose?
Yes, and that's really difficult when there's so many pressures competing. Women especially, were told they could do it all, but
Mm-hmm.
you can do it all, but can you do it all well? And most people can't do it all well day after day after day. Something's going to give. And a lot of times it's emotional,
It is.
that, internal things. So everything from depression, anxiety, irritability, extreme feelings of burnout, physical issues, whether it's migraines, stomach issues, insomnia. So now we're cycling from not just, mental, we're cycling into somatic mind body situations. So that becomes a whole nother area that
Absolutely.
we want to focus on as well. And I'm
No.
sure we'll talk about that more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're on the right track because what we do consistently becomes our reputation. So we want to make sure that we're more intentional. Do you agree, Princess? Now, what does that look like for us internally?
So I love the way that Christina and Katrina both spoke to, and things that I heard were, layering clothing and then talking about that fatigue that occurs with just life and balance. And with that, as the vitality curator here and being able to look at that, there's three components that can impact it, right? It's our physical, mental, and then our biologic, which all change every decade of our life. So even the management that maybe you did for mental health that you were able to cope with in your 20s or in your 30s no longer give you the protection now as an executive leader in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, where you're now hitting the epitome of your career. But life now presents other biologic challenges. And maybe this now is menopause, perimenopause, autoimmune disease, loss and grief, Maybe it's dealing with the fact that you have changes in your relationships. And all of these are impacted now by physiologic changes that occur that we may have been able to use previously as coping mechanisms. Maybe I just have to take Benadryl every once in a while. Or if I just do a quick detox diet, if I go ahead and just follow this high protein, low carb, that I usually burn everything right away. And now what happens is this high performing leader begins to experience, right, what we call it, begins with fatigue. And now they start to see it impact their performance. No longer are they looking collective and together mentally, physically, but they begin to look disheveled. Their clothing, their mental health, they can't layer the products anymore. And that is where the misalignment occurs with the inside and the outside. So with that, basically quick fixes no longer make us whole. And we have to dig deeper, spiritually, mentally, and physically, to find this alignment to be able to do the essential at our role.
Absolutely, I agree. So with that being said, would we consider the body as a leadership infrastructure overall?
100%.
This,
Yes.
absolutely,
And my
absolutely.
biggest analogy I always tell both male and female, but I tell patients it's just like a car. And I think I'm a pretty good high model car. You can only run so many miles and
I love
do the
it.
same. So take care of
No,
yourself,
absolutely.
because the check engine light's going to come on, and my job's to run your diagnostic. But you've got to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, with that shift comes a change, and that change pretty much shows women how to prioritize things like self-care, because the last thing we want to do is not be able to function at an optimal level. Katrina, when a woman becomes her at this level, what do we start seeing that we're not able to name? That is so important for women today.
I would see her confidence.
Mm,
When a woman, I would just say when any woman or any man, when they really feel good about themselves, when they look in the mirror and they walk out, it's like, oh, like I could just say, for instance, for myself, like, oh, Katrina looks good today. It doesn't matter what goes on. It doesn't matter what I'm facing. But when I walk out in the morning and I say, oh, a sister is looking good today,
yes.
then that
Awesome.
is, you can feel that. I don't care what people say. When you feel, when you know that you look good, it's more than the feeling. When you know that you look good, you know that you've done some inner things, like Christina Rose, working with a Princess Lot, or even working with you, Dr. Rene. And then you add on your presence authority, which is me, to make sure that you look as good on the outside as you are feeling in the inside. You don't even have to say anything. Just your
Mhm.
presence with you walking in the room,
Absolutely.
people can see it and they want to get to know you and want to talk to you, not just because you look good, because that jacket is bad too. So,
Yeah.
just
Awesome.
that's what it is.
Now, so Katrina, elaborate a little bit differently for me then. So if the shift looks good or positive, and it is demonstrated as confidence, what does it look like when it's misaligned, or when a woman is dealing with too much pressure? Can you help me out here?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When she's dealing with too much pressure, she's not going to be confident, even
Mhm.
in the way that she looks. She probably is going to be very, very simple, is going to be very, very basic. And I believe a lot of women turn to wearing black because they think it's simple, but she's not going to even be
Wow.
confident in conversation with
Yeah.
you. So just say if we're going to a meeting or we're networking, she's probably going to be that one in the corner, really not knowing what to do. And it could be because she's not confident about a few things, or it just could be that she's not confident in how she looks when she steps in a room with C-suiters that look, I mean, when they just look fabulous. So it's hard for a woman to kind of navigate in a room when she does not feel or even think that she can even compare to the women that she's walking into the room with,
Yeah.
because of the way that she looks and the way that she presents herself.
Got
because
it.
she's
So,
not confident in the way that she looks.
wow, that is something that people aren't talking about out loud, especially us women, right? Christina Rose, do you agree? Behaviorally, what does that look like? You know, Katrina mentioned the presence and the lack of confidence. Well, I guess we can label the shadowing image. What would you call it, Christina Rose?
Well, the shadow concept, especially as originally discussed by Jung, is, the 90% of ourselves that we don't know, we don't have access to. We look at ourselves as the 10% we can see, like our personality, how we react, how we feel naturally, how we move, what our interests, likes, dislikes are. But we have this whole subconscious realm underneath. And that is very programmed not only by our genetics, but our environment. So we all are very aware of how childhood experiences, especially difficult ones, those of lack, those of bullying, those potentially of other pain, watching, parents have issues, how the socialization situation set up, they all imprint us. And then we react in sometimes, as we call it, uncomfortably comfortable ways. So
Yeah.
they're not healthy. They're not, really comfortable, but we're so used to them. We're comfortable, why we choose certain partners, why we choose certain roles in our life. So it's a very complex and multifaceted topic. But a lot of times as women reach a certain place in their lives and get to a certain age, they start being more interested in the shadow. They start being more interested in the childhood influences and why they are acting the way they are now, especially as when Katrina and Princess were talking about some of the things that they kind of encounter where they're not able to take care of themselves as much. Maybe it's because of burnout or, perimenopause, or overwhelm or taking care of everyone else in the home. And then they're not, keeping up appearances. So there's so many influences and it's very personalized, but even talking about it and bringing it up like we were doing to the surface
Yes.
might help women start thinking, oh yeah, some of that's resonating and ringing true. And I want to investigate that and think about that a bit, contemplate it.
Absolutely. I know when it comes to emotional intelligence, most women, we emotionally disassociate with a version of ourselves that we work so hard for, right? And then we lean more into believing that we aren't enough, right? Or we're not doing enough. So we become more involved in that whole imposter syndrome. Okay, if I feel like I'm not enough, then I do more to overcompensate, right? And I know one time we were having a discussion, you mentioned white knuckling, right? Where you just behaviorally, you just do more and do more until you're depleted. And that's not the best way to operate as a woman, right? Especially as a woman leader or advanced professional as we climb the corporate ladder, we're overproving ourselves, and most of it is internal. Do you agree, Christina Rose?
Sometimes people realize that they've been on the wrong track their whole life and they've been living for somebody else's life and
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah,
That leads to a lot of imposter syndrome because now you're like having to unwind your whole life and be like, wait, if I could do it again. So then the regrets start and
absolutely.
then we
No,
start from
I
there. So
agree.
we start where everyone is.
Absolutely. And we definitely you definitely touched a topic that we will come back and talk about very, very soon. But let's bring Princess in because I think you have so much to contribute because as a woman and a woman leader, we create certain patterns that demonstrates in a positive light, but then also demonstrate when we're misaligned, right, to our natural abilities and capabilities altogether. Princess, what does that look like in a positive light and also in a misaligned light?
Okay. Well, I was saying that, of course, I'm always like reflecting because I think it's neat to pull from everyone's perspective. And shadowing, white knuckling, and imposter syndrome are all very relatable terms that I hear from the bottlenecking when the patient enters the healthcare system. women have the highest retention. It significantly falls off, greater than 60% after childbirth. Because most of the women, if they are in the workforce, the only time they're captured care decide that it's a priority in order for them to stay in the role they are, is then they have to get health care as they're taking care of their unborn child. After delivery, it now falls off, and now they move into that executive role, whether that be in their home, whether that be in the workplace, whether that be finding identities to sit here and now make it through for that first 20 years to see how they can do this. And then, like they say, they have their aha moments. What I find, though, is in a positive light, I do have many of them have positive thoughts on being able to say what good they were able to bring into the world. What they sacrifice is now having to deal with what we now know that we screen for, right? We now are, want a mammogram when you're 40 and over. And so why do we want to do the mammogram? Because 1 in 8 women get breast cancer. That self-breast exam would have caught in a positive light that in her early 30s, but was neglected secondary to her fulfilling a primary role. And that is where, being able to align executive women and leaders in whatever platform they choose to possess or to have, to understand that you have to align wellness biologically, mentally, and physically in order for you to meet the demands of what the role is asking of you. Otherwise, what you sacrifice is longevity. So what you choose not to put in your body is fuel. And many of my executive leaders, if I ask them what they ate in an 8-hour day, it's not good. If I ask them what did they have for electrolytes and water, it's not good. If I ask them, so where I say that, then they fatigue and brain fog, lack of energy, but you decided your worth by what you chose to fuel your body with.
Yes, that totally resonates. Because I can't even remember what I ate today. But I think I did have an ounce of water, maybe 2. So I understand. And so what begins to happen internally as women adjust to meet those expectations? So you mentioned, childbearing age, women are a little bit more intentional, right, than not. So let's say if it's a woman that's over 45, what are we looking at internally, Princess?
So we're looking at internal shifts in metabolism. So metabolic syndrome is a big one. Cortisol, so a lot of adrenal fatigue is another one. Creating inflammation, which causes a cascade of symptoms. What they will perceive is changes in skin, hair, and nails, which impacts then what they now are trying to portray. They will then compensate with products, skincare, hair, clothing, which lines right with what Katrina says, where she says then they move from maybe colors of power to wearing more, where they wore black in the beginning because they were studying a presence, but now they're wearing more darker colors to hide what they're not confident in. Because as we get metabolic syndrome, menopausal shifts in hormone changes, dysfunctions of our thyroid, adrenal fatigue, which causes cortisol and inflammation, we then now no longer want to be in clothing that are going to create attention. So the impact internally is where they now have chaos, and that chaos finds me in different ways. And I always tell everybody, you're your own artwork. What I do is pull back those layers and help them to understand how to take dysfunction and make it functional by finding alignment through vitality and wellness to allow them to meet the demands for their job.
Okay, great. Love it. So with that being said, Katrina, to add on to what Princess was talking about, let's bring it all together. And if we have a woman right now, a professional or executive woman right now, she's at a certain age, she's achieving what she needs to achieve, but she's starting to identify what we're talking about, simplify it for her. What are 3 things that she needs to evaluate today?
Okay. From a presence part, One thing I would say, organization.
Mhm.
That's the number one thing, and I mean an organization. I can make it clear, in her closet. So organization in her closet, meaning placement of where things are, and for her to know what she has in her closet. Because one of the number one things that I notice with women, they don't realize what they have in their closet, or is so disorganized when they need I would just say a black top. I'll just use something simple. If they need a black top, for example, or maybe one that has something on the sides or a puffy sleeve, it's probably maybe in her closet, but because her closet is so disorganized, she would go out and purchase a new one. So I always tell women that I always tell them, if you are organized in your wardrobe and you know what you have,
Mhm.
it will save you so much money
Yes.
that you probably be like, oh my goodness, I don't have to buy that black top because I have one already in my closet that looks like this.
Yeah.
And another thing, I tell women that what can shift. So I would say organization, that's going to help you save money. Number two, shop for a complete wardrobe, not for, I would say, as people say, outfits or looks. We shouldn't go to the mall and say, oh, I have this event, so I need to shop for this outfit.
Mhm.
We shouldn't shop like that. We should shop and build in a wardrobe, because when you build a wardrobe, it doesn't matter if you're invited to anything. If you have the right wardrobe, you can go in your closet. It has to be organized, and pull out something, and you're going to look fabulous. So, and I would say that. And number three, if you are not able to do it, if you have no style, girl, it's okay. A lot of people don't have any style. You need to hire someone. Resource it out. For women, we attempt to do every single thing ourselves, and just like Christina Rose said earlier, we cannot do everything and do everything well. So hire someone and alleviate yourself of that decision.
Wow, that is so resonating. I have to go look into my closet right now. Or, well,
Mm.
right after this, this filming, of
Yeah,
course.
stop
Well,
stop doing it. I'm telling you, it saves so much money.
I love
You,
shopping for events,
yeah.
but I get it.
Mm.
Now, so that plays along behaviors too, right, Christina Rose? Like, how do we eliminate certain behaviors that is not leading from within? Please share.
Well, unfortunately, behavior modification is a topic of its own. It's,
Mm-hmm.
as we all know, and anyone who's ever done any sort of, okay, I'm starting this new workout today, I'm starting this new diet today, and then it quickly fades out into oblivion. It's the big grandiose plans rarely work. The small step-by-steps, and with organization at the right time are what tends to lead to longer lasting change. So not expecting from it to go to A to Z overnight, A to A and a half on its way to B is probably an excellent start. So downshifting, very, very, driven, successful women who are now like downshifting in their lives because of everything everyone's talked about, overwhelm, biochemical issues, increasing external stress. Well, it's really hard to come to terms with maybe they can't go at the same speed, the same rate. So being honest with ourselves, we talked about white knuckling. Like, white knuckling does not last for long, especially as we get older. We have to start doing some of the healthy things everyone's talked about today. The nutrition has to be reviewed. Sleep hygiene is so important. We can go on and on, movement, and then the outward appearance to feel comfortable and at your best self. Like, being comfortable is so important. And sometimes it takes women who've kind of been in the, working from home in the sweatpants and socks thing a while to get back on that,
Yes,
because a lot of people went to that right after 2020. So it
absolutely.
can feel a little awkward, but hopefully these are things we'll discuss further in the future.
Oh,
So we can,
absolutely. Absolutely. Once again, Christina Rose, you hit that target. a lot of us, we feel comfortable working from home, and also, Katrina, as we transition to an older version of ourselves, we tend to stick to certain wardrobes and clothes or even brands that we wore in our 20s and 30s. I can only speak for myself, but I still go to Express. And I've been going to Express since I was in college, and I like their brand, but I know that as I am evolving, my look has to evolve and behavior has to evolve also, right? Even when it's uncomfortable. Now, when we speak upon that, um, the way we eat, the way we sleep, these things are just as important too, right, Princess?
Absolutely. Yes, I will go ahead and piggyback off of both of them. I think they definitely hit some great points. And I
Mhm.
will say, I think we're all aligned. Now, I do exchange the word older for seasoned. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all know right now because I
Okay.
want to go down in my grave looking just like this. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right now, I say it's like season like Sasson. All right, we got to accept the fact that we're obviously maturing.
Right.
All right, so I would say that my three that I'd say to focus on is playing off, like I said, what Christina and Katrina said. I loved the organization. I always tell the patients to focus on finding, small things and then now organizing those. And for me, it's supplements. So that's why I always try to align what's going on with their blood work. Sleep is my next one, sleep and recovery. So with that said, I do focus on tracking sleep. I think a sleep diary is very important, or utilizing some type of tool to be able to see the quality of sleep and recovery. Many of my patients will say to me, I just know I'm not sleeping well. And once again, when I try to get to the root of those, and that's a word that's been a little exhausted right now in the healthcare arena. So that's why I'm not going to try to harp on it, but it's root cause, root analysis. But really, what I'm trying to understand is there are multiple things that cause interruption of sleep. So getting them to do either a sleep journal or sleep diary is going to be important to be able to look at that. So sleep, and the other one is protect your time. If you want to use the system of eights to be able to say you allowed so much time for so many things. Otherwise, creating healthy boundaries is another one, which we can explore more in the future. And then lastly, I always say give yourself grace. I always tell people, give yourself grace. If that means that you've missed something that you're supposed to attend, you went ahead and you maybe showed up late. I call that divine delay. If the fact that you know that you overcommitted, then what I need you to do is practice saying words that don't start with "I'm sorry," but maybe start with, "It's all right. Please give me some grace right now. I'm recovering from grief. I'm adjusting my schedule." But it creates some tools around being able to navigate some new experiences that maybe you didn't feel before, biologically, mentally, and physically. And now you're trying to navigate that. And that's where we'll all come together to build on those.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Princess. A lot of times, we as women, we quietly experience these things. Once again, we don't have a name for it. We don't want to name it because it sounds like something we would have to fix, and we don't like to get fixed. We like to
Mm,
elevate, change, modify, but we don't want to identify an issue emotionally. I would say the top three things I would contribute to this conversation on an emotional standpoint is to, like you said, Princess, grace is so important to understand where you are and where you want to be. These things are important, but you have to appreciate the present, right? The present that you're in right now. So I would say number one, grace, in a form and demonstration of being able to connect with yourself and your inner child, also understanding that inner child and understanding what she missed out on and how she should not try to overcompensate, to feel valuable, right? So grace is so important. And emotionally too, I would say number two is building confidence, right? That should be a continuous effort, is to feel good about yourself. Self-care is so important, and that impacts your emotional side because you're loving on yourself, right? So we, number one, grace. Number two, loving on yourself, making sure that you have all that you need, because you can't depend on someone else's love or someone else's appreciation. You have to give it to yourself. And number three, I would say, and it falls aligned with what we talked about, but I'll name it stress management, right? That's a very important competency of emotional intelligence, is how do you deal with stress, right? Most of us, we suppress it and we say, we got it, I got it, I got it, I can do it. And, going back to the white knuckling, we talked about Christina Rose, just trying to do everything. We have this perpetual checklist that it's impossible, right? Especially once you get to a certain stage. And Princess, I'm going to still say seasoned, right? But once you get a seasoned age, it's okay to shut down at a certain time. Excuse me. I'm learning to shut down. Besides important events, but 6-7 o'clock, it's okay. Say enough is enough. Working 12, 14 hours days are over. And we don't have to feel guilty for wanting to shut it down and putting the phones away and, turning off all devices. So I get caught up, and that's my, challenge to myself. And I commission to, and other women who are listening, to challenge yourself to remove put away the devices. And that will help you a lot with the emotional regulation you need to elevate. And since we're talking about elevation, right, ladies, my last question for you today, right? When it comes to elevating, what is your number one tip? Now, when I say elevation, this is minusing, right? Deducting the sustaining, right? We're not talking about sustaining, because She Leads EQ Women's Leadership Experience. It's about going to the next level. A lot of the topics we talked about today were mainly about sustaining, but we're starting a new conversation, right? So therefore, let's talk about bringing it to the next level.
One current client that I have right now, I can use this one. It took her 2 years to hire me. I don't know if it was her COO that she said, we talked, she always looked so good, like all the time. And she was like, she looks good all the time. Like, I look good, but I don't look like that. And she shared with her, she shared with her that she had a stylist, and her stylist helped her look the way she looked. It was just kind of like an elevation over time. So she looked good, like I said, but I came in and I elevated her. But she knew she needed help, and she finally pulled the trigger and said, hey, I'm going to hire Katrina, and I'm going to get this done so I can be elevated. And now people are like, what is she going to wear? And I'm like, do you tell them you have a stylist? She's like, yes, I do. Because
Awesome.
now everybody wants to see what she's going to look like at the events, because she has elevated so much.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I truly believe that, certain things should be delegated if you're not comfortable or if you want to go to the next level. And here at She Leads EQ, we're always about the next level of elevation. Thank you for sharing that. And Christina Rose, what's that one contribution you have when it comes to elevating, going the next level?
I always suggest for people who are being drowned by the to-do list, by all the external obligations, and now all the many symptoms we had all talked about today are starting to become full force. What is one thing off your list you've wanted to do for yourself for a long time, something you've used to love to do, activity, place, person you want to see? What is the one thing you want to do that you have not made time for in months? And when you're going to make time for it? And if you're not making time for it, that's telling you something. Like, after we have these discussions and they're still not doing it, that means you're putting yourself way, 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 way back of the list. So then we can focus on why that's not happening, how to prioritize better, and how to move yourself up the list. Because unfortunately, as we all know, no one else is going to do it for us. People will take all that wonderful energy and all that hard work and wring you dry. So
Wow, that's deep. I love it. Amazing contribution, Christina Rose. Thank you so much. And Princess, go ahead and wrap it up for us and let us know what
All
is
right.
that one thing women need to do to elevate
Well,
herself and her health.
boundaries are a sign of self-respect, not selfishness. Respecting someone's time is very important. So it is okay to state at this point, give yourself grace and, go ahead and recognize that, when you can start on time, finish on time, but people will like you more. So set those boundaries for the people around you and love yourself. And that's it.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing the health aspect of it all. And time and boundaries definitely impacts your life. So one thing for sure I can say from our conversation that are hidden costs, right? The hidden cost is different for all of us. But on the emotional side, I would say there are some non-negotiables. I would furthermore say that one of the non-negotiables for women everywhere, and I'm sure we all can agree upon, is your peace, right? That's a non-negotiable. That's one cost that's not worth it all. And others that would follow would be your health, your wholeness, sense of self is definitely a non-negotiable. Now, we are here to assist. We're here to help and elevate women all over the world. And thank you for watching and tuning in. This is Her Advantage, the Vanguard Circle edition. And what you are witnessing is a level of leadership that is cultivated, refined, and sustained. The cost of becoming her. The cost of becoming her is not her peace. It's not her health, her wholeness, or her sense of self. The cost of becoming her is the willingness to govern herself so completely, so intentionally, that the woman she is becoming has everything she needs to lead without losing herself. That is the standard, that is the work, and she doesn't have to do it alone. We are here. Everything we have laid on this table, the presence, the patterns, the biology, the inner governance, is the work. And these are two ecosystems designed to take you deeper into every layer of it. Thrive IQ solutions bring this level of precision directly into organizations and leadership teams, where emotional intelligence becomes measurable, actionable, and embedded into performance. And for those who are ready to continue this work in a more personal and collective space, She Leads EQ is where this conversation continues every month here in the Central Florida area, within a curated collective of women committed to leading, evolving, and sustaining their success from within. Join us next week for our next conversation, Leading Through Transition. Who do you become when everything has shifted? Because leadership is refined in transition. And who you become in those moments determines how you lead and what comes next. Thank you to the Vanguard Circle of Ambassadors, Katrina, Princess, and Christina Rose, for bringing your full authority to this table. At last, we are finally back. Thank you for joining Rise and Shine Coffee Breaks with me, Dr. Rene, where leadership insights are poured like our coffee, strong, no sugar, and always fresh.